Digression.
No. I'm not having it.
I mean, is it food we're talking about?
Definitely.
It's very juicy.
Come on.
But I'm just stating facts.
What were we talking about?
Hey guys, salut, I'm Alex and I make food videos on YouTube.
Hi, I'm Josh and I edit Alex's food videos on YouTube. Hey Alex, how's it going?
I'm good, man. How are you?
Yeah, I'm good.
We work a lot together. We talk about food, we live food, and when we have this discussion, we often digress. We can't keep our head straight on the subject. There's always something that triggers our curiosity, I would say.
There's so many avenues to explore, and
Exactly.
you've got to see what you can find out about different things.
The food world is amazing. Last time we had a chat, we talked about knives. This is a very personal subject. I love knives very much.
Yeah.
I think they are maybe the only tool in my eyes, the only tool of the cook, basically. And we talked about the difference between this or that type of knife, Western knives and Japanese knives. We had this discussion so many times in the past. One thing that I would love to talk about today is the difference between an all-arounder and a dedicated knife. The difference basically between Chinese knives, or should I say, the Chinese knife,
Yeah.
and Japanese knives with a
Plural.
big S.
Yes.
At the end.
Yeah.
With a massive S, especially for Japanese.
Yes, it's two very different approaches, isn't it, to the knife and
yes.
the way it's used.
Exactly. So just to give you guys a bit of an update, a bit of context maybe. The Chinese knife, the one that I'm referring to, is the Chinese cleaver.
Yeah.
And it is by no means a cleaver.
No, you couldn't be chopping bones apart with it or something like that.
Exactly. It's just made to do all the tasks. It's the chef knife, basically.
Yes. Yeah.
And on the other hand, you've got the so that's the Chinese approach. One knife to do it all.
One knife to rule them all.
One knife, yeah. And in the darkness, bind them. Yes. And on the other hand, you've got the Japanese approach to it, where each and every knife has a dedicated purpose, has a dedicated field of application. You can't use an eel knife to perform a soba cut.
No.
That doesn't work like this. It's
That's
not
a bit
the Japanese way of life.
Couldn't-
Yeah, exactly. So, what's your first reaction on this, Joshua?
Well,
What knife do you use on a daily basis?
do you know what? I'm possibly in a sort of transition period at the minute in
I
that.
see, interesting.
So, until very recently, I have used a £20 sorry, that's monetary
20
terms, not weight.
Oh wow! So that's what I thought. I thought, well, okay, that's a big
£20
cleaver.
sterling Chinese cleaver.
Oh
And
wow! Okay.
I used it essentially for everything. Small tasks, little fiddly things, chopping garlic, up to carving a chicken into separate bits, or using it to sort of smash and bash things, chop herbs, cut through big, like butternut squash, everything. Literally everything I would use that for. And like I said, it wasn't a very expensive one, so it's just kind of a workhorse tool that I'd try and keep sharp to the best of my abilities. And then recently, somebody bought me as a present a Japanese knife. Now, I should clarify, it's not it's single beveled. In fact, before we get into details about that, it's a Western knife made by a Japanese company. Let's put it that way. And in a way,
I get this.
It's sort of advertised as a chef's knife, so an all-rounder. But I've got to say, I don't find it as easy to use as an all-rounder as the Chinese cleaver.
Oh wow! Especially if you're, I mean, the Chinese cleaver. So I got a few of them in the studio, and the first one that I bought a while back was a very bad one. I think I paid €8 for it, $8 for it. Very bad one. Like the steel, you can feel that it's not retaining the edge, it's not working. But then I got myself a decent one for about the same, probably $40, which, to be honest, seems like a lot of money when you see the thing first. The handle, the way it's put together, it doesn't feel quality to me. But that's what I thought initially.
Yeah.
Because then I started using the thing and I realized, wow, all right, so the handle, which I felt like was too short for me, for my hands, and the knife is completely unbalanced. That's what I thought initially. And then the steel they use for that knife is amazing. It's retaining an edge. So I keep on cutting myself with it whenever I'm doing the dishes. Not so much when I cut things, but when I'm doing the dishes, for whatever reason, I'm a bit careless, I'm listening to music or whatever. That thing is sharp. Really, really sharp.
To be fair though, Alex, I feel like you could cut yourself on a spoon. You seem to cut yourself all the time.
Gosh, and you're my editor. You shouldn't be disclosing this. Okay, anyways. Yeah, that's an option as well. But then that knife, I grew a love for it. I started using it more and more and more and more. And now there are times where I really want to use that knife because I know it's going to get the job done. Exactly. You can bash stuff. I can cut through a whole head of cabbage. I can push it because it's pretty thin. So that's the misconception that everybody has in the first place. Chinese cleaver looks like a meat cleaver. Like a meat cleaver.
But it's not. Yeah, they're very different to handle.
Yeah, it's very thin, first of all. Then I would say that the blade is not as... there's not as much of a curve to the blade. It's almost straight. When you're placing the knife on the table and you're chopping something, you're chopping up and down.
Yes.
Less of a rocking motion. So that's another difference. Super thin. The handle is a bit short to my taste, but it's just how it is. It's a bit round. The handle is a bit round. And then there's not much to say about the build in this knife. You can see that it's not the purpose. The steel and probably the width or the real estate that you've got on the knife is what's important as well.
Yeah.
Two things. Do you have any additional feeling about this knife? Because I feel like, yes, these are the takeaways for me. The size and the quality of the steel.
Yeah, and in a way that's all that it needs to be. I feel like a Chinese cleaver, it's not flashy, it's not arrogant, it's not in your face. It just does what it does well, and it's very understated almost. I mean, except for the size of it. Usually when people see it, they're intimidated by how big the thing is. But what I mean is it's not ornate. It's not something that's going to have lots of time put into, you know, sort of this hammered steel look on the side of it with a specially crafted thing. You're not going to spend £200 on again, money, not weight. You're not going to spend lots and lots of money on one because I suppose it's about getting the job done. For me, that's what the knife seems to be about.
Yes, I absolutely get the same vibe with it. But then, like since I cook every day and since I'm a big knife geek, basically, I love these tools. I've also been working with Japanese knives.
Okay.
I've been working with so in Japan the biggest difference between Western knives and Japanese knife is that usually besides all the different shapes that you can find in Japan, as you mentioned earlier, Josh, the blades in Japan are only sharpened on one side.
Yes.
And that makes for a narrower profile. They slice basically better. There's also something else. So you've got one side that has been beveled, but the other side is not exactly flat. There's a recess. There's a depression. So there's a hollow that is allegedly able to give you a bit more of a food release. So they are they're sharper tools, the Japanese knives, but they also are just a touch more fragile, I would say, since the angle overall is a bit slimmer, a bit thinner.
Because the point of the cutting edge of the knife is so much thinner. Exactly. I just wondering whether it'd be worth explaining I'm trying to think of a... Because when we did the episode where you went to New York to meet the knife sharpening master, it took me a while to understand what he was talking about when he was talking about double bevel or single bevel or whatever. Okay. I think maybe a good way to explain it is if you were looking at a clock and you imagine that the hands of the clock are the angle at which the knife is sharpened, a Western knife would be like, say, looking at 10 to 2, for
10
example.
to 2, exactly. And the symmetry is important.
Yes, it's symmetrical on both sides. It comes down at the same angle. Whereas with a Japanese knife, if you were looking at the hands, it would be more like it was 2 o'clock. In that one hand, it's not symmetrical. It has one side that comes straight down. Yeah. Well, not noon, because then that would be a piece of paper.
Yeah. Yeah, but it would have like one bevel.
As in 10 to 2 or 2 o'clock. So as in you've got either the symmetry or you've got where there's a vertical and a line that meets it.
Yeah, I think that's a good way of that's a good visual way to understand how the profile look. But overall, it makes for probably a tool that is a bit more delicate, that is not more fragile, but that requires a bit more care. And I guess it sums up pretty much the attitude. And that's weird. Hold on a second. Chinese chefs are immensely talented.
Absolutely, yeah.
So that can't be the only difference between these knives. Because I've seen chefs in China. I haven't been to China, but I've seen YouTube videos. That's the way I've been traveling to China.
That's how we all learn, isn't it?
And the guy basically was cutting an onion atop of a balloon with a Chinese cleaver.
Why?
Just to show the amount of control it can.
The precision.
Yeah. Because if you go too far, obviously the balloon is gonna pop. And the guy wasn't popping the balloon. So unless there was some tape that I didn't see, because I'm just a dummy, and maybe I just buy.
Maybe this was take 99. You know.
Yeah, possibly. But I was just amazed by it, and I thought, so it's not about the Chinese cleaver being just an all-arounder. It's a whole philosophy behind this.
Yeah, absolutely. I think it's the almost maybe their attitude to it is that you sort of adapt to the knife, or you are the tool more than the knife. Do you know what I mean?
Yes.
Your skills adapt to be able to do many things with one tool. So, as opposed to developing many tools for different skills, I suppose.
You've been telling me your experience you had with a Chinese cleaver. You said your friend, they gave you a Japanese knife. Was it a present?
It was a present, yeah.
So do you know about this? Just a quick digression, because I think it's the theme here.
Yeah.
Do you know about this? You can't give a knife to somebody. You can't do that.
Why?
You're aware of this. You're not aware of this.
I'll do what I like. Thank you very much. What do you mean I can't do that?
No, you can't do that. It's a superstition. It's a very powerful superstition.
Okay, but where does the superstition come from?
I don't know where it comes from. Just don't get me started. It's just like one thing that everybody knows. If somebody...
Well, clearly not, because I don't know it.
Okay, so here's the thing. It might be just related to France. So in France, that's something that anybody can... It's a takeaway. If you come to France...
Yeah.
And somebody offers you a knife, you need to pay something back, even like a cent.
It's a lot like that in the UK. You know, if someone comes up to you in a darkened alley and they offer a knife towards you, you have to pay them in something in return.
You got to give them some coin. But in this case, it's just like we say that's. I'm not even gonna argue if it's stupid or not. It's just a superstition. So you bite it or you don't bite into it. But it's just. Giving a knife to somebody is bad luck. It not only is bad luck. Sorry, I missed something.
Go ahead.
It breaks up the friendship. It ruins the friendship between you and your buddy if you give them a knife.
Oh, hang on. Let me just clarify this, because I quite like this diversion. If the knife is bought as a present in return for the fact that basically it is a friend of mine. We don't need to go into details, but he was going through a tough time with whatever it was, and I was there for him, and he was like, I want to get you a present to say thank you. And I said, well, I need a new kitchen knife.
I can't believe you said that.
Leave me with it.
I need a Japanese knife, a very expensive one.
He said, he kind of put a price on the table beforehand. I was like, okay. Well, what about a new knife? That seems about reasonable. But, yeah, I don't know. It's even in that case, though, where it's, you know, kind of he said, I want...
maybe not in that case, because you clearly said like it was an exchange somehow.
Yeah.
But I feel like the knife thing in France is like it needs to be an exchange. Knife can't be seen as gift, so maybe it applies to your situation as well.
Yeah.
So somebody has given a knife to me in the past, and I've given back a penny.
Oh, I see. There needs to be something done. Yeah, okay.
So it's like a gimmick, maybe. Like my dad gave me my like a decent chef knife, not something fancy, just a good one. A while back, like probably 10 years ago. I didn't give anything back.
And you've fallen out with your dad, never spoke to him again since.
I mean, our relationship is fine. And somebody told me, did you do that? You can't do that. You need to pay something back because it ruins the friendship. And I said, it's my dad. We are not friends.
Can't stand the guy.
Yeah, exactly. Not friends. It was funny. But okay, to be honest, I've always found this to be a bit ridiculous somehow. But it's just like one of these traditions, superstition. It's a bit fun.
Oh, well,
to
there
just
you go.
play with it.
I'd never heard of that, but...
Okay, so next time you see your friend, maybe you owe him a penny. Maybe he's waiting for it.
He could be. I'll make sure to give him some money. No, he's not. He's
Lucky
not.
you.
I don't think either of us are aware of this superstition. I mean, to be fair, that's the good thing about superstition. If you don't know the thing, it doesn't affect you.
Are you aware of the ladder? Are you aware of the rabbit's foot? Are you aware of, I don't know, all these
Black cat.
Are you a superstitious guy?
No.
That's great. That's probably why we are working together. I'm not a big fan of superstition either. Anyways, so this guy gave you a knife. You offended the guy by not giving him a penny.
Exactly what's happened.
And then did you end up using it, the knife?
Yeah, I use it all the time.
Oh, you use it all the time.
I do use it all the time. But I think
what's the brand? What's the brand of the knife?
Oh man, now you're asking. I don't know. I'd have to look that up.
I had to ask.
Well, I'll tell you what. I will look that up at the end, and we'll come back to it. But as I said, it's a Japanese company, but it's made as a Western knife, so it's a double beveled thing.
But it's made in Japan.
Yeah, and it's ridiculous. It's the sharpest knife I've ever owned by a long way.
Oh wow! Okay.
And so, in terms of at the minute, I'm not treating it in the same way that I did. This is the other thing. I'm not treating it in the same way that I did the Chinese cleaver. In that, I'm a lot more delicate with it, and I'm a lot more quick to clean and dry it. Almost multiple times within the same sort of cooking session. It's not. Go on.
Yeah. Hold on a second. Is it a carbon steel knife?
No, it's not.
It's a stainless steel. So why do you care?
So.
Why do you care? You don't have to clean it immediately afterwards. It only affects carbon steel ones.
I know, but I think it's almost like a
you feel
mental
sorry
attitude
for the knife to cut
what
things.
You what?
You feel sorry for the knife when you cut things. I'm sorry. I'm gonna wipe you out.
Maybe. I don't know. It's just a thing of
guilty.
There's because it looks so much nicer than any other knife that I own. I feel like I owe it the respect of.
Can you describe the knife? So you said it's a westernized.
It's like a sort of
so western handle. I'm guessing.
Yes. So it's not because it's a double beveled knife. It doesn't matter whether it's left or right handed. So the handle is.
No, I meant something like all right. So you've seen these Japanese knives, the very classic one, the super classic one. They have these either round or octagonal handle.
Yeah.
Made usually out of like a light colored wood, and they just hammer it very gently into the tang of the knife. And that's usually how they do it. So when you hold the knife, it doesn't feel anything like a Western handle.
No, yeah.
With the rivets.
It doesn't. I don't think it's got rivets, but it is more of a Western handle. It's like a dark. It's a really black wood, and
does it have like a little wave at the end of the handle at the very bottom of it? You see when you hold the knife in your hand.
It's not uniform shape that goes all the way along the thing.
Oh, that's what I meant. It's not straight all the way.
No.
Okay, so it definitely is a Western
yeah,
style.
It's a Western chef's knife, but that has been made, and I think it's got two forms of stainless steel on it because you can see The edge is a different.
Is it VG10?
Yeah, that sounds.
Oh wow!
Familiar.
So that's an amazing steel. First of all, it's an amazing stainless steel.
So it's. I think that's the stainless steel. I think that's the steel sort of in the middle, and then it has like
encapsulating.
Because it has a matte finish hammered steel.
Okay.
Main part of the body.
Okay, so apparently that friend of yours loves you.
And I haven't even given him a penny back, so, we'll see.
That's weird. But you said this knife is extremely sharp. Does it retain the edge properly?
I mean, I've not had it long enough to even really find it out. Thus far, it's still super, super sharp. Mm-hmm. But I think the point I was getting at with it, with not taking more care of it and being a bit more precious over it, is that I'm not going to use. I don't use it in the same way to sort of bash and squash things like I would with the big flat edge of the Chinese cleaver. I'm not going to use it to sort of butcher
Open
a chicken
cans.
as much. Open cans, unlock the door.
That's
use it
how I
instead of a
see. That's how I
screwdriver.
picture you in my mind in your kitchen, opening cans with the Japanese knife. So my experience with the Japanese knife, I guess, is somehow similar and also a bit different to yours. So the very first Japanese knife I had my hands on is a knife that my mom brought me back from Japan.
Okay.
It's not a big fancy knife.
Mm-hmm.
It's a rather small one. It's like, it's not a paring knife. It's somewhere in between the chef and the paring. I think it's called a petit knife. Petit knife. It's extremely well balanced. It's also a Western knife made by a Japanese company. Extremely well made. Quite light. A blade that is very hard and yet super thin. The handle is perfectly integrated in the knife. There's no seam, there's nothing. There's no bacteria growing nowhere. I know you don't care about bacteria, but I do. So I'm very... I love when things are built properly, and I can see when handling the knife, its weight, its balance, the steel they use, it's very delicate. It's very subtle. You wouldn't notice that knife. It's not fancy at all. It has no pebble finish, these marks that you could see on some fancy knives. It's not black. It's just like a stainless steel knife that works extremely well.
But it's well made, yeah.
Oh man, so much. And I love the details. I'm a big detail fan. I love when things don't scream in my eye. I love when things don't poke my eyes with fanciness. I love when looking at something for a long period of time, you can see details. But really, if you're looking long enough, if you're looking close enough, and that's the case with this knife, and I've been using it quite a bit. And the action I love using it for is carving out a chicken. So breaking down a chicken in 8 pieces. This is something I practice once and then. I don't eat that much chicken, but whenever I do, I try to buy them whole. And it's always a good excuse to practice skills. And that knife is just like exactly the right size for this job.
I think a small knife, especially for that sort of job, is perfect, really, for for butchering a chicken.
Small but pointy and thin and sharp. It's like a razor, basically. And then just being able to cut through the tendons and the flesh. Sorry, it's maybe I shouldn't be too descriptive with this action, but it's doing the job very right. And I've been performing the same action with my Chinese cleaver, and it works fine as well. It just feels like a bit like I'm paying a bit less respect to the chicken somehow.
Yeah, absolutely. It's definitely more difficult to be as precise with those sort of tasks when you're using the Chinese cleaver. I think that you are able to do a wider. So, for example, I don't think you could take the smaller, the Japanese knife that you'd said, and do things like getting through a whole head of cabbage or those sorts of things. It's not going to work. But that's kind of the point, isn't it? I suppose is the sort of Japanese approach to knives is to create a tool for a specific task or a specific type of task. and then really refine it so that it is perfect for doing that thing, which then obviously means you have a whole range of different knives that are suited to one specific task.
So there's a barrier there, then, because with the Chinese cleaver, we said it before. Even for a good one, it's not that expensive.
No.
And you only need one
Yeah.
to perform all the tasks.
Yeah.
For the Japanese knife, it is expensive. I mean, most of the Japanese knives that I've seen, they are quite expensive. I mean, it depends what the word expensive means in this case, since it's related to an amount of work, but still, like...
I think compared to each other, the
Yes.
the cost of a Chinese cleaver versus even one Japanese knife, they are usually less expensive. And if you add into that the fact that, you know, you're probably going to need a set of a few...
I would say 3 at least, no?
Yeah.
What do you think? At least 3 knives to replace one Chinese cleaver.
Yeah, absolutely. I think that's
So I would say so maybe 6 times less expensive than the Japanese equivalent then.
Yeah.
So that makes for a huge entry barrier for any cook out there. And yet, that's the weird thing I wanted also to come up to. Chinese cleaver are not that popular. Japanese knives are very popular in the cooking world.
Do you know why I think that
praised,
is?
They are celebrated.
I think there's an element though of as with lots of things where people see a price tag and they automatically assume quality. Now, in this case, I'm not saying that isn't true. You know, that a Japanese knife is expensive because of the craftsmanship that has gone in to make it. But I think it's easier, for example, for the general public to sort of, if you're not actually going to use a knife, for example, but just watch videos about it or be interested in something like that, there's more to be interested in with Japanese knives. There's not the cleaver. It's there for work to get the job done. It's not flashy. It's not fancy. It's not even really that interesting. But if you've got a lot of work to get through in the kitchen, and you don't want to constantly be changing and be, and you're not a sushi
I can sense something. There's some underlying feeling in your words. In between the lines, I'm reading something.
Go on. What are you getting?
You think Japanese knives are snob?
A little bit, yeah.
You see, you're transparent on this. I hear you on this. Let me tell you about a memory of mine. When I bought my Chinese cleaver, I went to this place in the Chinese district in Paris. It's a place. I mean, they barely speak French, and they supply restaurants. It's a place I found riding in Paris on my bike, doing nothing.
Yeah.
And I found this place. It's an amazing place, full of chef utensil, and it's reasonably priced, which is amazing. Then I saw this cleaver, and I thought, wow, I always wanted one. Because I understood a bit about the differences, and I took one. It was like this one. That's the price that I mentioned, so $40-$50. And then I brought it to the cashier, and the woman told me, she said, it's not a meat cleaver. And I was like, all right, okay. So I didn't feel offended. I just thought, okay, so she's used to this. She knows that people don't get what a Chinese cleaver is for.
Yeah, absolutely.
So that's a global misconception then.
And to be fair, I was guilty of that. Even
I knew it.
I should have said this actually. The first Chinese cleaver that I
Look at you.
bought, I had to throw away because I didn't understand there was a difference between the Chinese cleaver and a meat cleaver until I was trying to make ramen, funny enough. It was a tonkatsu thing. I had a bone that I was trying to get through, and I used my Chinese cleaver for it, and it bent it out of all shape that it should have had. It was in that moment that I had to realise, I was like, of course, it's not the same thing.
Did you realize, or did you just pest?
What do you mean?
You don't say pest. Sorry, this is the wrong word. Then did you just complain, or did you realize that you made a mistake? Did you go like, what is this knife? It's not even a proper meat cleaver.
It was one of the. I was about to be annoyed at the how flimsy the knife was, and then I was like, hang on a minute. Of course, it's flimsy because it's not the same thing. It's not for the same task. Yes, it has the same shape and may look very similar superficially to a Western meat cleaver, but I was like, of course. Because I think then I suddenly realised in the back of my head, I was like, also, it doesn't feel as heavy as I expected it to be.
Understood.
It seems thinner. And then all of the things clicked into place, and I was like, it's a
like
different tool.
It's like the Da Vinci Code. You realize
The mysteries of the universe became unlocked.
Yeah, exactly. One thing, I think we're getting close to the end of this podcast, but one thing I'd like to share regarding the distance you put between you and the Japanese cutlery.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
There's something that annoys me even in the Chinese cleaver that I like.
Okay.
I don't like when tools are not put together with care. It feels wrong to me. I'm definitely not a big fan of just, bashing tools and taking them for granted and doing stupid things with them, but I'm not a big fan either of just taking that little expensive knife and place it in a box and just wiping it with a dishcloth every time you're cutting something. This is definitely not the way I cook. And I had a very fun experience with a knife maker in the past, and I think it's worth sharing in this episode. So he's an artisan knife maker. I was posting stuff online, and we had a chat because I'm very interested in knives and I wanted to know how they are made. And the guy was super interesting. He told me plenty of things about how he forged knives. And it got to a point where he might have got the impression that I wanted a knife of his. And so, but his knives are a bit expensive, a bit fancy, a bit that, a bit this. And he told me, Alex, I would love to send you a knife, but you have to promise me something. And I said,
You send me a penny in return.
Yeah, not even that. He's not French, so it doesn't work.
Okay, that's fine. Yeah, go on.
He told me, I can send it to you, but please don't treat it like a treasure. Use it. If I send it to you, just use it. Because he told me my knives are made with specific handles, specific blades, and blah, 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 and specific steels, shapes, whatever. But he told me, if you don't end up using it on a daily basis, I'm gonna be pissed. Because I feel like my work would have been wasted.
Yeah.
And I like this approach very much. And that's the thing that I love about the Chinese cleaver. It's made to be used. It's made to...
It's not an ornament. It's there to do the work.
But maybe, I don't know, maybe I just don't understand it. I don't understand it fully. But I would love if Chinese cleaver just had a bit more care in their build quality. In the handle, being just a bit tighter on the tang, in the... I don't know. It feels a bit wrong to me. So when something comes in, and it has a loose build quality, then I'm not going to treat it with respect. So it also affects my relationship with it. With the Japanese knife, I think I can get over it. Maybe because I have like a few of them, maybe 2-3 of them, and so I'm okay with. I won't bash them, but I wouldn't treat them and place them on a cushion every time I'm using them.
No, but I think there is a like what I was saying at the start, the fact that I'm probably, and maybe because it's fairly new to me, that I'm overly cautious about making sure that I clean the knife, or at least put it back into the box that it came in, sort of thing. I still use it. I use it for lots of things all the time. I use it every single day. But I think because I know the knife looks a certain way and I can see the care that's been taken in making the thing, it makes me take more care of the knife than I ever did with the Chinese cleaver. So yeah, I agree with you on that. It almost demands that I pay it some respect, sort of thing. Do you know what I mean? Because I can see that somebody has spent the time to make the thing.
Yeah, and it's getting in the way of you making the meal.
No, but it's not, though. I don't think it is. This is the thing. I'm still using it to do the work, to get everything done, but I'm also more aware of that, before, maybe rather than just leaving it on the side, before I go and eat, maybe just clean it up and put it away, and then. So
that's the difference. Then when I said treat it with respect, I meant don't open can with it, because I don't wipe that knife. I use. Most of the knives that I own, they are stainless, because I'm not careful enough with these. Even though I love these knives, I try to not do anything stupid with them. But no. A knife that rusts, I can't accept that in my kitchen.
So, Alex,
Yes.
with regards to the difference between a Chinese cleaver and a set of different Japanese knives for specific purposes, I've got an analogy that I know that you will definitely understand, and hopefully I think other people will. In that, if you're someone who owns a camera, right, and you either for photography or for filming things, you have a choice to make with when you get that camera as to whether you go down the route of having zoom lenses, or should I say a zoom lens, one lens that you can stand on the spot and change the zoom, and you can decide how far away the thing is to you, or change that aspect, or a collection of prime lenses where they've got one distance, and if you need to get closer to your subject, you have to physically move.
That's an amazing analogy.
And the thing that you get is with the prime lenses, the image is you get this really shallow depth of field, so that the only thing that is in focus is the subject, and you get an amazing image at the end of it. However, if you're on an all-day shoot where you're taking video and you've got to constantly be getting things quickly, and you've got lots of different things that you need to do, having to switch constantly between different lenses on the camera is just an absolute nightmare.
Yeah, I get this, and I can read this within your speech. Basically, you're a zoom guy.
No, I'm not.
You're not a zoom guy. That's weird. I'm a prime guy. I am a prime guy.
You say that, but you're not, though, because most of the time you film with a zoom lens.
Oh, I don't. I never film with the zoom lens. I always film with a prime lens.
No, you don't.
I do, man. There's only one lens on my camera. It's
exactly.
Zeiss Batis,
Yeah, and
18 millimeters.
It's not. It doesn't change. It's literally just the wide angle.
I mean, to some extent, it does, because within the camera, and I'm getting a bit specific, I can choose to crop in the sensor.
Okay.
And so I've got two lengths with one lens.
Oh man, I always thought you used a zoom lens.
In the past, I used to have a zoom lens a while back.
Yeah.
Maybe that's the one, but yeah. But to be fair, that was a very narrow zoom range. The one that I used in the past, it was super narrow.
What, like
I
18
never
to
had
24
an
or something?
all-arounder like the classic 28 to 70. No, it was like a 16 to 35.
I see. Yeah. Not a huge range of things.
Yeah, I'm a big fan of prime lens. Big fan of them. I think. And I had, this is such a deep subject for me, and I'm just biting my tongue not to go too far. But I worked in photography in the past.
Okay.
And somebody told me something that is like a common quote in photography. If the picture is not good enough, it means that you were not close enough. Which also means stop zooming in, get involved.
Yeah.
And that makes a tremendous difference, not only in the picture itself, but also in the relationship between you and the subject.
Well, maybe that could be true of a Japanese knife, I suppose. If you're working with a particular ingredient and you're not getting it, whatever it is you need to do, it's not being cut precise enough, or you're not.
Yeah.
Then it does that work. That analogy.
Yeah. There's a big analogy there. Like, for example, if I were to translate the way I use camera lenses with my Japanese knives, it's about the same. I use super specific tools, but I only have a few of them.
Yeah.
Like in terms of lenses, when I'm on a set, when I'm shooting something, I only have one extra lens, and it's also a prime. So I have two prime. So I accept the burden of having two of them. But I limit myself. I couldn't have like a whole array of prime that I would never use in the first place. Also, something that is very connected to a Chinese cleaver being an all-arounder. What I like is it's available. It's there, ready to perform action. This is what I do with my camera. I have a nice camera because it's my day job, but it's always out on my waist.
Yes.
I don't put it in a bag unless I'm traveling. If I'm somewhere where I'm shooting, I have it casually on
because you never know when you might need to.
And also, it's a tool. I am careful, but not to the extent of just being stupid. And with knives, that's exactly how
it's there to be used. It's like what you were saying.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah,
my Japanese knife, I know it has a value. I know it is something I should be careful with, but it still is a knife.
Oh man,
What?
I've just thought that the analogy that we're using goes even further in that, like,
Go.
the two sets of lenses that I've got are some sort of vintage ones that I picked up in Japan that are by a company called Takumar. That these sort of like really old school prime lenses that are Japanese, and these Samyang ones that are a Chinese company. So anyway,
No, yeah.
I think. See, maybe this is the thing, because you're somebody that shoots video almost every day, okay? You have got to a point where you know that these are, even if I'm going to use, in the analogy, Japanese knives or prime lenses, I've worked so much at this thing that I know these are the ones that I need to have because they're the ones that I'm going to use the most. Whereas because I don't film that often, I'm an editor, not a
Yeah, but you do your
camera
fair amount
operator.
of shooting, no?
Yeah, I do every now and then, but nowhere near as much as what you do. I've got, like, what have I got? A 24, 35, a 50, an 80, and a 200. So I've got 5 prime lenses. I've actually got more, but I might
insane.
take that many with me. And the thing that I always find is I'm constantly moving between lenses because I don't know enough. I haven't had the experience enough to know, right, I'm going to this thing, I'm going to need this, or these are the things that I use the most. So I suppose you could compare me to sort of an amateur chef that's gone out and bought, seven different Japanese knives and doesn't really fully know, okay, I'm cooking this thing, so these are the knives that I'm going to need.
Yeah, no, I get this. It's interesting. Like I've been owning a few camera in the past with a few lenses. At the moment, I've got fewer lenses than you got.
Yeah.
I only got 2 lenses, and that's something funny. And there is definitely a relationship with knives. I think okay. So this is a little technical disclosure for the audience at the moment. But this is the subject of the podcast. The analogy between camera lenses. I mean, it might not be the exact subject, but it's a very important point, I think. The analogy between camera lenses and knives, it works very much.
Yeah.
So,
I'm sure. Sorry, go on.
Yeah, and so I own an 18, so super wide angle. Okay, that allows me to chat with people, to be quite close to them, and move around and have plenty of things in the frame, even though my head is often cut up, cropped. You know that.
Yeah.
Okay, but still, that's my first lens. And then the other lens is a telephoto, so it's a 90 millimeters, and I have nothing in between. So I have no 50 millimeters, no 35, no 17, nothing. I just have either long or super short.
Yeah.
Because at the end of the day, and that's exactly the same for a knife in the kitchen, you need what suits your personality, the way you cook.
Yes.
And that's exactly how I shoot my videos. I just need a wide angle to tell a story
Yeah.
and a very narrow angle to show the details.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah.
And that's the way I've been, over years, I've been polishing, I've been trimming the excess of my kit. I've been adding stuff also, yeah.
Would you say then that if you, for example, if you were looking at your analogy of the 2 prime lenses that you've got, the sort of the wide angle would be almost like sort of a Japanese made but sort of almost Western style chef's knife that's quite big, but you can also be quite precise, and then you've also got a very small but a very sharp paring knife that you could use for things like
if you could see
deboning
my
a chicken.
face at the moment, guys, I'm just holding my hairs in my hand because that's exactly my kit. I've got 2 knives in my kit.
Yeah.
I've got the all-arounder, like a
You're
Japanese-made
talking
version of the chef knife.
This
And
is
then I've got
actual
a
knives, not. We're not talking about analogy with the lenses. These are your actual knives.
Yeah, these are my knives. Exactly. I've got a Japanese chef knife that I use for everything. Super well made. And then I've got a super small paring knife, a French one. And these are the 2 knives that I use most of the time, because I feel like they cover 80% of the situation while not, being a burden to carry around if I need them.
Yeah.
And it suits my personality. I've always thought let's put it this way. I've always thought that the compromise is the enemy.
What do you mean?
Anything that can do it all can do nothing. And that's not exactly accurate. It doesn't always work. This quote doesn't always work. But most of the time, when you're looking for something to be, and I think I'm becoming an expert in this. If you're looking for perfection, well, spoiler alert, it doesn't exist.
It doesn't exist. Yeah.
So just take the tools you got in front of you, make the most out of them, and most importantly, pick the tools that suits the way you cook. You seem to be a Chinese cleaver guy.
I think I am.
Well, things need to go fast. The knife shouldn't be taken care of too much. It still needs to be sharp because you enjoy cooking, so having a blunt knife wouldn't make any sense.
Yeah.
But then having to wipe that knife, the Japanese thing...
I think it's only because I've had it a short amount of time. I'm probably going to stop doing that. But
yeah, I just hope that your friend is not listening to this podcast. Man, it's been a pleasure chatting with you.
And you.
Okay, see you. Speak
All
soon.
right,
Bye-bye.
man. Speak soon. Bye-bye.
Ciao.